Thank you so much. You know, Barry Keane started me remembering things. And I could tell you a couple more things to add to the Christopherson story, but I want to add something else first. I remember back in, I think it was 76, we were going to Germany first. It was one of our we did a couple of tours in Germany. And we were heading for Germany. We had to go from Toronto. We were flying commercial, of course. We had to go from Toronto down to Kennedy Airport. It used to be called Idlewild, but it was JFK. And we had to get on, I think it was Allegheny Airlines that went from there down to JFK to catch the flight over to Germany. Well, that day I phoned home, just after we had a little bit of time, I phoned home and to say another goodbye to my dear wife. And she said, "Oh, I was so worried." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Oh, an Allegheny flight went down today." And you think, what are the odds, you know? I'm not superstitious or anything, but in those days there wasn't as many flights active as there are now. And there was probably 100 Allegheny flights in the air that day. So that's pretty close as far as I'm concerned. So, my wife said, "I'm scared, I don't think you should go." I said, "Honey, that's as close as we're going to get. Nothing's going to go wrong now." So we climbed aboard a Pan Am 747. Man, those 747s were wonderful to travel on. Love those things. I love flying though, but not like Mike. Anyway, we got aboard and everything was on time, everything was smooth. We got on this 747 and took off out of JFK. And about 30, 40 minutes into the flight, still climbing, heard a loud boom and felt a shudder. And pulling back power and starting to turn and thinking, "Oh, this is not good." And we were up in first cabin. So incidentally, the pilot came back after a few minutes, talked to one of the flight attendants and said, "Did you happen to look out the window and see which engine the debris came out of?" So we did the whole thing, circling around for about 40 minutes, dumping fuel to make an emergency landing on 3 engines. And it was okay. It was nothing, it wasn't too scary. But everybody was thinking, what else is going to go wrong now, you know? So I'll try to make this story not too long, but we landed safely. We had all the fire trucks and everything on the runways waiting for us. We made a nice safe landing. We pulled back into the gate, and they got us off the plane. They told us we had to stay in the waiting area. We couldn't go anywhere. And but there was a phone. There was payphones there, so I phoned home. My wife said, "Where are you right now?" I said, "Well, you wouldn't believe what just happened." So, and she said, "Well, you're coming home?" And I said, "No, they're getting another 747 for us." She said, "Oh, this is not good." I said, "Well, what could go wrong now?" So it took about 3 or 4 hours for them to get another 747 in place for us. They did get one, and they loaded us on it. I'm saving us a lot of little details, but we got on the second 747, and this one was a sort of a high-performance version. They explained it to us that this plane wasn't around a lot, but we got it. And they put us in it, we took off. We got about 20 minutes into the air, and one of the cowlings came off one of the engines, because we still had fairly large flap, hanging down, and the cowling tore part of the flap off. And this landing wasn't quite as smooth as the previous one. And we're like looking at each other, and we're looking at Gord. Gord's looking at me. He says, "What's going on?" But Gord said, "Well, there's 3 things that happened now." So we got back safely, obviously, and by then we were really late now. It was after midnight, and most of the ground crews had gone home. And we were like, "Hey, we have to get our instruments out of baggage and get them on another plane. And they said, we can't really get anything out. And they said, this was way before 9/11, so they said, you can go down on the tarmac under the plane and have a look through the containers and see if you're going to find your stuff. Well, we couldn't find our stuff. Some of the plane had been unloaded and some of it hadn't, but I saw the damage that the cowling had made when it came off and tore the flap off, and I was like, wow, this could have been a lot worse. But anyway, finally around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody came up with a Lufthansa flight that was coming through from Rio, landing in New York, going on to Frankfurt, which is what exactly we needed. But we had to go way over to another terminal, and there was no taxis around. We're way in the middle of the night now. So we hot-footed it across from one terminal to another. And we got on the Lufthansa flight, and we were pretty tired when we got into Germany, and then we had to start looking for instruments because we didn't get our instruments with us, but we did a gig that night with borrowed instruments.